This next panel is a really nice segue from the one we just had, because it really highlights folks that are in the mix, 10 toes down, in expanding the landscape of what our action sports community looks like. So we're calling this one Curating a Community. And I would like to bring to the stage, firstly, my dear friend from the wonderful state of Vermont, Miss Ashley Laporte. She is the VP of Impact and Purpose at Burton and Burton Snowboards. Hi. Next up, from GRLSWIRL, co-founder of GRLSWIRL, Lindsay Klusick.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Eliette.
Eliette Singleton. Sorry. Hi, Elle. I just saw you skateboarding on Instagram yesterday. I forgot that Lindsay's on taking a mental health day. This is Elle, everyone. And last but not least, skateboarder, model, actress, basically like how you want to be, like your energy, what you want your energy to be in life is this woman right here, the one and only Briana King. Let me just say that in the history of X Games, this stage has never looked, there's never been a stage that looked like this at X Games. So I just want to sit and bask in the moment of, and the energy of us. I have been with X Games, I started in 1999. I think over the course of those years, there would probably be 2 or 3 of us in total that were working these games, let alone being in the industry or competing. So,
what do you mean us? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Those of the more melanated hue. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've obviously seen a much larger conversation about what this action sports community can look like and the manner in which we get to show up and contribute and not have to ask for permission to be in someone else's space, but that this is our space too. So I just want to get straight down to it. What does this idea of community look like to you all when you think about this world of action sports that we're playing in?
Hello. Well, with GRLSWIRL, our slogan is "World's okayest skaters." And when you go outside and you see these kids dropping into 20-foot pools, I think that we've really hit the mark in identifying and catering to a space like an in-between. We're bridging a gap where people feel compelled to be welcomed in skateboarding. So our community is really just like, please show up. If you can't kick push, if you can't even kick flip, our community will support and guide you.
You don't have to be the awesomest to participate and have fun.
Precisely.
Ashley?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm super psyched to be here. And I'm really psyched that in this space, in this moment where action sports industry is coming back together, there's a space created to talk about creating inclusive community because it doesn't get talked about enough. And so I'm here today with Burton Snowboards on behalf of Burton Snowboards. And when I think about community, I think as an industry person, as a brand, we often think about inclusion and think that we actually have to create something new. And I think you know this because you live this. I grew up riding. The thing to understand with Black folks and other people of color or other historically underrepresented people in action sports is like, we out here. Like, we've been out riding, skateboarding, like we've been in this scene for a long time. We're just not particularly visible. And so it's actually not, in my opinion, about introducing snowboarding or introducing skating to Black folks like we don't know. As a brand, it's actually about getting into community with community leaders like these phenomenal women who are next to me and asking as a brand, how do we pour into what you are doing? Because Burton, we love Burton, is a really white company. It's owned by a white family. We are in one of the whitest states in Vermont. We actually don't know always how to create community with Black folks. But when I look at the things that we've been doing that we're really proud of, like Culture Shifters, which is, you know, your brainchild with Zeb, with George, that's been about Burton getting behind community leaders like you and like Zeb and saying, you all know how to bring Black folks together. What do you need to pour back into your community? And so that's what when I look at things that are going well, I look at people in the industry who are not acting like we have to introduce folks to something, but they're building relationships and pouring into the community organizers who are already there.
That's dope. Brianna's like, give me that microphone. I got bars to speak.
No, we have to. Community for me is, I come from a family of two people. It's my mother and my sister and I, so it is family for me. I spend almost every single day with the same people for the past 6 years. So it's just one giant, huge family for a lot of lonely people, and it's lit.
How did skateboarding come into your life? Because I don't know if it was your intention, but you've definitely helped to redefine the possibility of what it looks like and what it can be adjacent to be a skateboarder. And it is a powerful thing to watch in motion.
Skateboarding came into my life because I grew up in downtown Los Angeles. So you have a bunch of bums riding around on skateboards, and those were my friends. So it was just in my life on and off. And it wasn't until the Skate Kitchen, and it was a group of Black women in New York. And those are people that I could finally relate to. And I was like, whoa, I'm going to finally do the thing that I wanted to do that made me really uncomfortable, and do it comfortably now with these Black women. And then it just grew from there.
You touched on something that's really, really important that we talk about on a regular basis, which these sports are already hard by themselves. All of them, in some way, shape, or form, are trying to kill you. Like, you're trying to navigate joy, doing this thing you love, that is also low-key and sometimes high-key, actively trying to kill you. And when you go to do the thing in a space where you don't feel welcome, where people are like, oh, I don't know how to react to you being here, it makes it that much harder. It's like trying to kill you in a different way. So that importance of being able, you touched on it, of being able to see yourself in reflection. I want the audience to be able to know, like, what does that do to be able to sit in reflection, see yourself in others as you're pursuing this thing that you love?
That was an excellent question.
Thank you.
For me, on a personal note, being able, wow, that was a great question. I like to surf and I like to skate, and those are both male-dominated, white-dominated spaces, especially in Los Angeles. And the like clarity and softness in my heart that opens up, like when I'm trying to get into my flow, when I'm amongst other women in the water or at the park, on the street, is so centering. Like, there is a note of, wow, like people have my back in this space based off of XYZ intersections, and it's very reassuring. I know that I can communicate that with them effectively. Like, I was just in the water at Leo, Carrillo, and a bunch of girls got in, a bunch of longboarding girls, and we were like eyeing each other like, oh, you got that wave? Or she got it. Yeah, she got it. Let her go. Go! And it was just like celebratory. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot. I think so Burton hosts an event called Culture Shifters, which is, I think, where we met the first time. And it's a place for Black folks and Indigenous folks and other people of color to come together for, it's about like 4 days of riding in Aspen. It happens in April, so it's at the end of the season. And when you talk about it, Selema, you talk about how it's sort of this one time where a lot of onlys, that's the word that you use, a lot of onlys get to come together and ride together. And we've talked about that because what we mean by an only, what you mean by an only, is that most of the year as a Black person, for me as a fat Black femme, like I'm riding with a bunch of white folks, with a bunch of people who don't look like me. And I've gotten really good at that. So like I've gotten good at sort of assimilating in and sort of forgetting. But it takes a lot of my energy to be focused on riding and enjoying riding, but also like feeling like I need to explain myself or like act in a slightly different way. And when we all show up at Culture Shifters is at the end of a really long season for folks. And it's like we ride every day. We wake up early in the morning, we ride every day. Then there's like a big party at night. Then we wake up the next morning, we ride. It's actually a time where it's pretty tiring. But the common refrain from people who go to Culture Shifters is like, I left with more energy than when I came. Like this is the one time a year where I get to like fill my cup again and refill my energy. We have a lot of folks who run nonprofit organizations and grassroots orgs who show up at Culture Shifters who are doing the work of justice work, of equity work in their sports all year round. That's an exhausting thing to do. And so to be able to, for 4 days, just be completely yourself, to be able to like center joy in the sport, for a lot of us, we don't get to do that a lot. And so that's what it means to me when I get to ride in reflection of folks who look like me. And it's why I think the work that both of you are doing to enable people to live like that every single day, like that's more than just something that's fun. It's truly life-giving for our communities. It's really, really important work.
I forgot the question. I was too busy just in my feels.
I was talking about the power of getting to just sit in reflection doing what you love, as opposed to you use the term being an only, which sometimes people in the room might not realize, like it takes work, like real energy to be an only in these spaces.
I still feel odd in a lot of spaces, so it's still really hard for me to speak on that. Even though there's spaces that are built for us, we're still really odd. So I do a million other sports, and not having the grime of skateboarding and surfing and whatever else sport that I do is really uncomfortable. And I'm sure it's just me coming from the grime, but I really just love the community that I specifically have, and I'm still trying to find my space within others. So it's just kind of hard for me to just speak on that, but I'm just really grimy. Yay!
Can you explain why it's hard?
Yeah, let's say, okay, I went on a surf retreat recently, and you'll be in a table of people talking about, let's say, their family. Talking about family, this is how I was raised, my mom did this for me, my dad did this for me, and I'll just be there like sitting in my own space. So I don't know, it's just an odd space for me sometimes, and I think that's what separates my event. It's a lot of loners, a lot of trans people, a lot of queer people that have been pushed out of their families, and maybe I'm just really stuck in my space and feel really safe there, and I'm scared of opening up in other spaces, but I guess I just need to be more open to being more open and being happy in other spaces, but yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. We find ourselves in a very interesting time, culturally, as a society. 4 years ago, in 2020, everybody and their mother wanted to be like, yes, inclusivity and diversity and inclusion, and we're open to learn. And how can we pay you money to come and show up and be in our brand because we realize now that we're down and we want to know what we didn't know. 4 years later, the tone that we are in societally is like plenty of brands are being like, oh, are we done? Is it over? We fixed diversity and inclusion, right? Oh, those words aren't even cool anymore? I don't have to put that in my budget? Sweet. And there's this narrative that like, oh, but why are you guys still talking about that? Like we fixed that. I'm gonna start with you because you have the brand perspective. Why is it that Burton in this time, which could easily be like victory, like remember George Bush when he was on victory? Why does Burton continue to double down with culture shifters and to want to continue to do what's in it for Burton?
Oh, there's so many ways I could answer that question.
Answer them. We've got time.
I think one of the first things is a real recognition that this work takes a really long time. So, we, in the same time period of the last 4 years, there's been a lot of like jargon and rhetoric that's been tossed out there. So you all probably hear a lot like racism is structural, it's systemic. Like these problems are structural and they're systemic. Well, the way that we see it is that a business is a system. And so like we really need to be thinking about how do we change our business, the system of our business to center equity in the same way that we have been for years changing our business as a system to fight on behalf of the climate crisis, to fight for sustainability. Like it's a systems-based problem. And anyone who works inside of a business, like many of you do, it actually takes a while to change that system. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think for Donna Carpenter, who is the owner and co-founder of the company, she really started from her own passion area as a white woman, looking around the room and feeling like there weren't a lot of women around. And she started doing the work of asking, like, why is that? We were just talking earlier today with folks who are working with Kimmy Fasani, who's a writer on our team, around when she first became pregnant and was having a child, and us realizing, like, oh, the way that we draw up our contracts is not supporting women who want to have children. And meanwhile, Donna, who owns the company, has 3 boys with Jake, So we had to change that part of the system. That stuff takes a really long time. And so now as we include more people in our definition of who's being left out, it's not just women, it's gender nonconforming people, it's trans people. It's not just, it's not thinking about gender along the binary. It includes Black, Indigenous, and people of color. It includes, adaptive athletes. And so we know it's just going to take us a long time to change the system. So that's one part. And I think the second part is that what I hope companies start to realize, industries start to realize is, yes, there is a moral imperative to this work, absolutely. There's also a pragmatic part of this. This action sports world is incredibly young. The next generation of people, Gen X and Gen Alpha, who are entering into this space, it's the most diverse generations of our nation, of our societal global history. Diverse across race and ethnicity, diverse across really open ideas of gender identity, of sexual identity. And so this is a pragmatic question of, are we ready to coexist? Are we ready to collaborate together? Are we ready to build together? And so we got to do the work to change the systems of our businesses to be ready for that. And the folks who want to do that proactively and be in community with folks in a real way and learn, we're going to continue to be relevant as businesses. And the folks who want to act like it's not happening and close their eyes and be like, I'm just going to wake up in 4 years and maybe no one's talking about this, they're just going to be irrelevant. And so I'm really excited to be working for a company who gets that it's the long game and understands that like this is the future of the world that we're going to be living in, and like we're excited to build toward that.
Bars. Those were bars. What does when you close your eyes in dreamland on that good pillow, what does a truly inclusive action sports community look and feel like in the future, as opposed to the performative one? Like, what does it really feel like and look like when you think about it?
My own events, also a lot of adaptive skaters. People are coming in walkers, deaf, Black, queer, trans, women, men, everybody. So that's always like my dreamland. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe that this exists because of me and all of us together. So my dreamland exists already with myself and my community.
Yeah.
So that everywhere, lovely.
To put it into a really concise form, I think it's building society. It comes from society, but building communities where people are so thoughtful and intentional that when anybody shows up, they don't have to explain themselves.
Oof. I felt that one in my spine. All right, that's the dream. When you look at the landscape of where we are today, does it feel possible?
Yes.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I mean, this is what I mean around like our communities are existing in these spaces right now. We're just invisible. Like we're slowly becoming more visible, but it's happening right now. And so part of it is just I believe it because I am seeing it. And I think what I was thinking about what we might talk about today and like, well, what's the role of action sports? Because there's
That was my next question.
Oh,
but go
okay.
take that, girl.
Everybody, every industry, every person has a role to play in making the world a more inclusive place where all people can thrive. The cool thing about action sports or the outdoor industry for snowboarding is that we are literally just playing. I mean, like at the end of the day, what is set up outside is a playground where adults are playing. And are like having fun and centering joy. Every great movement in our society's history centered joy as a way to resiliently push through the work that we need to do. And so we get to make this really fun. Like I worked at 7th Generation before I worked at Burton. Ain't nobody want to talk to you about laundry detergent. Like nobody wants to talk to you about dish soap. Everybody wants to talk to you about snowboarding. Like everyone wants to come ride with you. And so like that's the opportunity in this is for us to like make it so welcoming and inviting to all different kinds of people, throw the party and make sure everyone who comes can have a great time and be themselves. And like, that's the joy that we need right now.
We love clapping for you.
Thank you.
To jump off of that concept of joy and playing, absolutely. GRLSWIRL is going on a world's okayest skater tour, a global tour, and we're hitting a lot of cities and countries in South America and Asia because they're budding, like they're socially coming around, like older generations through the means of social media and seeing all of the opportunity that action sports brings. Now their younger generations, like in Bangkok, in the Philippines, in Guadalajara, Mexico, the younger generations have an allowance like, wow, I can really make something of myself. I'm not just goofing off. Like there is great potential and possibility here for my life, for my community, for my future. So we are going to go around the world and just support these naturally occurring skate surf communities and play.
That's dope. I think my favorite thing right now in our industry, I mean, at this time in action sports is when I open up my phone and I see a kid in Ethiopia kickflipping down a double set with the whole village like losing their mind, or Uganda or Ghana or indigenous women in Ecuador or throughout South America. You know, we're seeing this amazing thing that's taking place, obviously, throughout Japan and Southeast Asia. And the fact that, like, this is a global pursuit of joy. And I think that for indigenous peoples who discover action sports especially, it's more than recreation, right? It is a peace that you get to achieve in places where you normally don't get access to that type of peace in your being and texture. And I think sometimes because it is so much fun and it is generational here in the West, we take that for granted, that like it's just one of the many options of play. But I think that's what the future of the action sports community looks like, is really realizing that like this is gospel. Like these sports and how we live, there is a gospel there in how all different types of people get to feel and exist and show up in their total selves in the world. When I see a blind skater, being supported by everyone else, using auditory cues to kickflip down a double set, I'm like, Selema, get your ass up and go find some living to do. And I think if we as an industry can figure out better ways to support the people that are doing the work and really lean into that, we have a future of an industry that will defy logic 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I thank you all for coming up on the stage and having this conversation, and wish you all of the best as you continue to thrive and do that work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.